Every woman thinks she knows how her life will begin. A dress, a ring, a single night that folds into decades of ordinary mornings. Mine began with an invitation, a favor, and a room that was full of people who already decided what they believed about me. My name is Elara. I am 31. For years, I kept a quiet ledger of small humiliations and kind gestures, and I told myself the ledger balanced. Tonight, I am reading it aloud. Before we start the story, if you like honest, cinematic life stories like this, please take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps, it matters, and it lets me share more voices like mine. Thank you. Now, let's begin. We had a good life. Not perfect, but honest. I met Adrian at a mutual friend's small dinner. One of those conversations that feel effortless, like a candle finally finding oxygen. He was steady. He listened more than he spoke. He remembered small things, the way I folded my scarf, the joke I'd made about my terrible coffee. He became the man who slept with his hand over my waist and called me in the afternoon just to say, "Tell me one small thing that made you laugh today." He was careful with my history, with the way old betrayals still curled at the edges of my nights. So when he mentioned Serena, his childhood friend, I listened with curiosity, not fear. "Oh, Serena," he would say, with a smile of someone who loved a memory. "We grew up on the same block. She's intense, in a soft way." He told stories about shared bicycles, about scraped knees and silly pranks. He would laugh and then ask if I wanted tea. He never made me feel like Serena was something to watch. He never made me feel like I should be on guard. But some tensions are not loud. They are threaded through a room in a way that the people inside the room pretend not to notice. Serena's barbs were economical. She didn't raise her voice. She omitted me on purpose. She would ask Adrian a question and then look at him the way people look at a shared secret. I felt that look like wind through a paper window. For months, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I reminded myself of my own past, how easy it had been to mistake insecurity for malice. I told myself that if I made room for her, she might become real company. I went to the coffee shops where she occasionally appeared. I smiled. I practiced being available. I told myself patience was charity. Then she messaged me. The message was casual, almost craftily so. "Elara, I'm doing a project. I need a woman for a short shoot. Would you consider modeling? You have the look I want." It was a favor request that sounded like reconciliation. Perhaps that was the point. Adrian offered to accompany me. "I haven't seen her in a while," he said. "It'll be nice. I'll come if you want." I said yes. I felt hopeful, foolishly hopeful, that the camera might shift her attention and that some ordinary kindness could make a small peace. The house was large and sunny, with high windows and the smell of lemon oil, an old money kind of brightness. Serena's mother answered the door. Her smile was the kind you practice in the mirror, broad, fixed, sincere just enough to pass for warmth. Her sister stood to the side, busy with a cup of tea and that small, efficient air of someone who always knows the seating arrangement. They hugged Adrian like he belonged to them. I stood between them and the hallway and felt the first small crack open. They said things in a way designed to land with the purpose of a small stone. "Oh, Adrian, you look wonderful. You always were the handsome one." "Serena always dreamed of this," the sister said, lightly, as if we were discussing weather. "She always imagined having someone exactly like him," the mother added, as if sharing an afterthought that would sting. It was suggested in tiny syllables. They had always believed in some story that included Adrian in a role I had not auditioned for. They used the future tense like a map they expected to be true. Would have been. Should have been. I smiled because smiling felt like survival. I posed because that was my role. The woman gracious enough to stand where others pointed. The shoot began. Serena gave me the poses, the soft angles, the lighting she liked. It should have been artistic. Instead, it felt like an audition for a place in a life I had already assumed belonged to me. Once, Serena joked, carefully, like a knife wiped of fingerprints. "We should do a family portrait." Her camera clicked. The phrase hung, small and fundamental, like a seed you didn't plant but that will sprout. Her mother used the phrase, "our future daughter-in-law," in a tone that was casual, as if rehearsed. At one point, the sister leaned across and said, "It's sweet of you to step in, like you're helping us keep a memory alive." Do not minimize that line. Do not let it sound small. It carried the implication of replacement, of permission, of erasure delivered with a smile. Adrian tried to shift the subject. He told a story about a plumber who fixed our sink. He tried to be silly, to be light. That was his instinct. He did not fight because he feared making a scene. He did not fight because he hoped kindness would diffuse tension. He did not fight because some people believe battles can be avoided by not starting them. But the avoidance was a wound. When the shoot ended, Serena hugged Adrian and took a photograph of the two of them, just the two. I felt the cameras click as if it were a small switch being thrown in some inner room. I smiled and thanked them and left without complaint, but my steps were not steady. On the way home, Adrian finally spoke. He folded his hands in the wheel and said, "Elara, that was..." He paused, searching for the word. "Weird. Weird." I let the words sink, because sometimes words signal what anger cannot. "Did you notice how they spoke of me?" I asked. "How they smiled at you like you were theirs?" He did notice. He said, "I'm sorry, I didn't stop it." His voice was honest. It trembled in that particular way of someone who recognized their failure. I thought it would be a moment, a lesson learned, a boundary established. I thought we'd move on. But this was only the beginning. Some patterns unspool slowly. They require long attention, a legal patience, a steady redrawing of lines you never allowed to blur. Over the next few weeks, Serena's contact increased, but always through Adrian. She texted him about trivial things. She sent photos of childhood hangouts with captions like, "Remember when we..." accompanied by smiling faces of two children. Cheap nostalgia belongs in scrapbooks, not in borderline friendships where promises are ambiguous. Then the real fracture. A private message sent by Serena to Adrian that began with, "I miss our talks." There was a tone to it I could not name, intimate in a way that asked for absolution and more. He showed it to me with the same transparency that had reassured me before. He read the messages and said, "She's being dramatic. I told her we're married." I told her it's over. And then the next line that landed with the weight of a stone. Serena's mother began to host dinners and to include Adrian in future planning conversations in front of me. "We always imagined the boys to stay close," she said, "and perhaps to stay connected to the people who matter." It sounded polite, like a floral card, but what it held, underneath the pleasantries, was an invitation for Adrian to remain emotionally available to a woman who kept signaling more than nostalgia. I asked Adrian to set a boundary. He promised he would. He promised he would be firmer. He promised he would not leave me in a room where others rearrange my life as if they own the furniture. Then Serena asked for a favor that upended everything. She wrote, "I'm staging a small family portrait for my mother's birthday. I'm short a person to complete the composition. Would you perhaps step in? I terribly wish for an image that has a woman in the frame." The message was coy. The request framed itself as artistry. The trap was wrapped in flattery, I told Adrian. We talked about what to do. Ultimately, I agreed to attend because I trusted our rule: communicate and set limits. He said he would be there to interrupt anything that felt wrong. I believed him. It was a mistake to trust that belief without seeing action. The family greeted us, warm as though we were family we had every right to be. But the words that cut came soft and precise. "We always pictured a girl like this in our album," Serena's mother said. "You fit the part perfectly, dear." She touched my arm like it was the arm of a costume wearer. The sister chimed in with a laugh that was shaped to humiliate. And Serena smiled like a director satisfied with a perfect shot. She touched Adrian's shoulder with an intimacy that did not belong in public. And in that touch, there was a memory being guarded, a boundary being reinforced. I posed. I laughed at jokes. I answered their small talk. Inside, my cheeks burned and my shoulders hardened. I began to compile an inventory of small betrayals. His silence, her calculated warmth, their practiced future tense. At one point, the sister said, with a ridiculous casualness, "You know, Serena always thought she would marry someone exactly like Adrian." Pause. The pause is where cruelty lives. We would joke about it when we were kids. Another soft laugh. The room felt like a stage that had rehearsed my erasure. Adrian moved to deflect it. He made a small joke about a terrible haircut from his 20s. He laughed, and I thank him now for trying. But laughter cannot hold weight against relentless implication. After we left, I asked Adrian to explain. Not to justify, but to tell me whether he'd noticed the pattern, to tell me whether he was willing to draw a firm line. He was. He told me he would, and he did. For a day. He put his phone down. He refused to answer a late-night text. He said he would stop meeting her alone. 2 weeks passed with an uneasy peace. I allowed myself to believe this was finished. Until the day my boundaries were used as a prop. A mutual friend, without asking us, posted a photo from a small gathering where Serena's hand was on Adrian's knee. Just a friendly gesture, everyone said. People liked it. Comments poured in praising old friends. And one snide user wrote, "Seems like family ties are stronger than some marriages." Social media can be the public square of small cruelties. The comment felt like a cold draft. Adrian apologized. He said he would address it. He told Serena the photo was inappropriate and asked that she be respectful. She replied with a message I will not forget. "You promised once. You promised when things fell apart." She wrote it like a contract he had failed to honor, as though a childhood promise overrides the person he married. When he told me this, I watched his hands tremble. For the first time, he looked like the man who had to choose between two histories. I told him I needed action, not words. I needed him to say no. He agreed to block her, to cut off the access. He drafted a message that was polite and final. He sent it. Then, immediately, the phone rang. Serena called. She screamed. She accused him of abandoning a woman who had no one else. She called me names wrapped in concern. Manipulative, jealous, cold. Her mother left a voicemail that was syrupy and dangerous. "History matters, Adrian. Don't forget where we come from." Their family had built a story in which Adrian was a piece of their past they refused to let go of. I listened to the messages. I felt rage, but rage was a hot thing, and I didn't want to hand it like ammunition. I wanted strategy. So we did the practical things. I booked a counseling session. We sat with someone who could name the patterns. We learned how attachment can feel like ownership when boundaries are vague. We learned how guilt can masquerade as obligation. The counselor told Adrian, plainly, "You are a grown man with a wife he chose. You created the conditions for Serena's attachments by being emotionally available in ways that were not platonic." That sentence landed like a verdict. Adrian sat with his shame. He apologized, not as a way to quiet me, but as an honest ledger. He wrote an email to all relevant parties, respectful but firm, that made clear his boundaries. He said he would not tolerate being placed in emotional triage for someone who had chosen to remain in his past. Serena's reaction was to escalate. She sent messages to mutual friends, to their old circle, claiming betrayal, calling Adrian ungrateful. She told stories of teenage promises taken out of context. She posted photos with captions like, "People change. Some of us keep the heart of who we were." It was manipulation disguised as artful melancholy. At first, people took her side. That is how the world tilts, toward the person who performs grief in public more theatrically. But after a time, the pattern revealed itself. Small claims, big theatrics, a refusal to accept that another life had been chosen. We did not pursue punishment. We pursued clarity. Adrian turned off all unnecessary social interactions with her circle. He stopped going to the reunions that had once been comfortable. He moved our routines to include me. Small things like Sunday market runs, small lunches between him and me, small practices of choosing. He told friends, politely but firmly, that he would not be part of the emotional caretaking she sought. And then came the quiet test. Serena tried to spark drama by inviting him to an intimate dinner the same week my mother was visiting. She timed it as if to catch us unready. Adrian declined, and he answered her with a sentence that was clear. "I am married. I will not be present for private evenings that feel like anything other than friendly get-togethers." He did not apologize for the firmness. He did not negotiate. He was steady. That steadiness felt like a door shutting in my chest. I can't describe the relief of it perfectly. Only the subtle uncoiling of muscles I hadn't known I kept tight. I remember making tea that evening and laughing at something small Adrian said. The sound of it was porous, slow healing. Serena tried one last thing: public drama. She posted a long caption about heartbreak and the cruelty of choices. And in that post, she included a black and white photo of Adrian from their teenage years. People commented, some with sympathy, others with irritation. I did not respond. I let the public tide pass. What changed everything was not the public clamor. It was our private practice. We built small rituals that were about mutual respect. We talked about what we needed, and we honored it. We taught each other to say no, to people who asked for more than friendship. We practiced boundaries like a muscle, building tone and endurance. And because he had to learn, Adrian had everyday tests. Invitations, nostalgia, casual mentions. Each time, he chose us. Each time, he chose to step away when it mattered. The more he said no, the less appealing the drama became to Serena. The less attention she got, the more her performance lost its power. Slowly, she faded from our lives. Not with fireworks, but like a storm that had spent itself. She continued to send messages now and then, but her urgency shrank. Her family stopped inviting him to the private things. Their rehearsed future tense dissipated like the last line of a script where the actors have left the stage. I cannot say I am vindicated. That's not how healing works. What I can say is this: the humiliation did not define me. The choice to leave my dignity where it belonged, with my own hands, did. Months later, we found a new ease. We learned to stay curious about one another's small changes. I started to teach a photography class in the evenings and found that reclaiming creative space felt like a small, private victory. Adrian started volunteering at a community center on Saturdays. We were repairing the little things that make a life livable. Trust in morning routines. Trust in the voice that says, "I will be there." Trust that a partner will not leave you in a public room to be rearranged like furniture. If you are listening and carrying quiet poison from someone else's actions, know this: you are not obligated to be present for their performance. You are not required to be the kind-hearted option that makes them feel less alone. You are allowed to insist on dignity. There were moments when I still felt the old bruise sting, like a muscle waking up after being unused. Sometimes I would wake because a memory pulled at me, a camera click, an offhand comment, and I would need to breathe and remind myself of the man who had chosen to change his patterns. Adrian did not become perfect. He became better. He learned that protection is not an absence of argument, but the presence of action. He learned that love without boundaries is not love at all. One evening, a friend asked us, was it worth it? The confrontation, the counseling, the changes? I thought of the slow nights, of my hands rustling through a bag, of my choosing to leave the room that felt staged. I thought of the small rituals that now make our days ordinary in the best way. I said, yes, because dignity is a daily practice. If this story reached you, thank you for staying. If you felt the ache, the anger, or the relief, share this story. Tell someone you trust. Reach out. And if you found this voice meaningful, please like the video, subscribe for more stories, and tell me where you're watching from. Your support helps more women's stories reach light.